My dear students, I hope you are keeping well after the holy Idul Adha. So, welcome you all to my online presentation. This is Muhammad Tubarak Hossain Mullah, Assistant Professor of English, Comilla Government College, Comilla. This class is designed for the students of honors first year, and today I have decided to work with the students of honors first year on the course of Introduction to Poetry, and our today's topic is Home Burial, a poem by Robert Frost. Robert Frost was born in 1874 and died in 1963. In the picture, you see there is a home, and beside this, there is a picture of graveyard. Home Burial, this poem has been extracted from the volume North of Boston, which was published in 1914. After the end of this lesson, learners will be able to say about Robert Frost, to recite the poem Home Burial, to write the critical appreciation of the poem, to explain the multi-layered themes in Frost's poetry. Now, something about Robert Frost. Robert Frost was one of the major American poets. He is also called a modern poet as well as a poet of nature. Frost has been called the voice of America because he simultaneously represents the beliefs and disbeliefs, joys and sorrows of the American people of his time. Frost was educated at Dartmouth College and Harvard University, but he did not complete his study. His mother, a school teacher, was also a poet, and like his mother, Frost worked as a school teacher and a farmhouse owner. He recited his poem, The Gift, outright at the inauguration of President Kennedy. My dear students, now let's listen to the recitation of the poem. Unfortunately, the video is not working. So, my dear students, let's try to recite the poem. I will suggest my students to keep the textbook while we going through the lecture. Home Burial, Robert Frost. He saw her from the bottom of the stairs before she saw him. She was starting down, looking back over the shoulders at some fear. She took a doubtful step and then undid it. To raise herself and look again, he spoke, advancing towards her. What is it you see from up there always? For I want to know. She turned and sank upon her skirts at that, and her face changed from terrified to dull. He said to gain time, what is it you see? Mounting until she cowered under him. I will find out now. You must tell me, dear. She, in her place, refused him any help. With the least stiffening of her neck and silence, she let him look, sure that he wouldn't see. Blind creature. And a while he didn't see, but at last he murmured, oh, and again, oh. What is it? What? She said. Just that I see. You don't, she challenged. Tell me what it is. The wonder is I didn't see it at once. I never noticed it from here before. I must be wanted to it. That is the reason. The little graveyard where my people are, so small the window frames, the whole of it, not so much larger than a bedroom, is it? There are 3 stones of slate and one of marble, broad-shouldered little slabs there in the sunlight on the side hill. We have not to mind those, but I understand. It is not the stones, but the child's mound. Don't, she cried. She withdrew, shrinking from beneath his arm that rested on the banister, and slid downstairs, and turned on him with such a daunting look. He said twice over before he knew himself. Can't a man speak of his own child he is lost? Not you. Oh, where is my hat? Oh, I don't need it. I must get out of here. I must get here. I don't know rightly whether any man can. So, this is the setting of the poem. You see, there is a conversation between the husband and wife, who a couple who have lost their firstborn child very recently, and there is some kind of misunderstanding between them. The wife is not, um, the wife cannot bear up the loss, while the husband is going as usual, and the wife thinks that her husband is much casual about the losing of their child. So the wife named Amy, uh, she is somewhat arrogant, and she is angry with her husband. Then her husband said, Amy, don't go to someone else this time. Listen to me. I won't come down the stairs. He sat and fixed his chin between his fists. There is something I should like to ask you, my dear. You don't know how to ask it. Help me then. Her fingers moved the less for all reply. My words are nearly always an offense. I don't know how to speak of anything so as to please you, but I might be taught, I should suppose. I can't say I see how. A man must partly give up being a man with women folk. We could have some arrangement by which I would bind myself to keep hands off anything special you are a mind to name, though I don't like such thing betwixt those that love. Two that don't love can't live together without them, but two that do can't live together with them. She moved the lathe a little. Don't, don't go. Don't carry it to someone else this time. Tell me about it if it is something human. That means while the wife is trying to go out, leaving her husband, the husband requests her not to go out and to share her feelings, her pains, her sufferings, her suffocations with him, because this is very private matter. Then he also said, let me into your grief. I am not so much unlike other folk as you standing there. The husband urges the wife to share her grief with him, and he also assures her that he is somewhat humane. He is not like other human being. He is not like other men. Then he said, I do think, though you overdo it a little, what was it brought you up to think in the thing, to take your mother loss of a first child so inconsolably? In the face of love, you think his memory might be satisfied. There you go, sneering now. I'm not. You make me angry. I will come down to you. God, what a woman. And it is come to this. A man can't speak of his own child that is dead. So this is uh, the husband is somewhat puzzled. He is astonished how his wife can behave like this. He also raises a question that uh, a, a father can talk about the child who is dead now, because it is very normal according to the husband. You can't, because you don't know how to speak. If you had any feelings, you that dug with your own hand. How could you? His little grave. I saw you from that very window there, making the gravel leap and leap in air, leap up like that, and land so lightly, and roll back down the mound beside the hole. I thought, who is that man? I didn't know you. That means the wife is also puzzled. She cannot think how a father can um, can make his son's grave with his own hand. Um, this is very abnormal for the mother. So this is the way that the poem developed. Um, Towards the end of the poem, uh, I will have a look to the last 10 lines. My dear students, you know that this is a poem, this is a very large poem of 120 lines. So now I am going through the last 10 lines of the poem. And living people thinks they understand, but the world is evil. I won't have grief so if I can change it. Oh, I won't. There you have said it all and you feel better. You won't go now. You are crying. Close the door. The heart is gone out of it. Why keep it up? Amy, there is someone coming down the road. You think the talk is all. I must go somewhere out of this house. How can I make you? If you do, she was opening the door wider. Where do you mean to go? First tell me that. I will follow you and bring you back by force. I will. That is the closing two lines are the affirmation from the part of the husband that he will go to his wife and he will bring her back. This is a glimpse of hope, aspiration for the readers that maybe there will be no final detachment uh, uh, between the husband and wife, and they will do something better for their own betterment. So this is the text. Now we are going to the critical appreciation of the poem. Home Burial is considered as the most intense of the dramatic dialogues written by Robert Frost. It is a tragic poem about the impact the death of a firstborn has on extremely sensitive parents. The main cause of conflict between the father and the mother is due to their different ways of bearing up with the death of a child. So, this is the conflict between the two sets of outlook, because in one set the husband is taking everything very normally, but the wife is not. He is not in a position to take everything normally because she is very shocked. She is upset on the death of her child. The conflict is terrible because neither of the two is at fault and both are partially correct. Both the husband and the wife are correct from their own point of view, but there is a difference. There is a difference in their outlook, in their point of view. That is why the conflict is severe. It is simply beyond the wife's thinking how a father can dig the grave of his own child. Her husband appears a heartless, unkind, and brutal man to her. She cannot think to live with such a person, disobedient to any softer feelings. The wife thinks that her husband is not loyal to her softer feelings. The husband, without realizing the degree of his wife's sensitivity, mentions the rotting of the birch fences. You know, birch is one kind of tree. The very mention of the word rot rings a bell in her mind and sets her thinking about the decaying body of their child who was buried in the grave. The husband's controlled grief is both real and intense. He is more practical and saner than his wife, so he can accept the fact of his son's death. The young mother in the poem cannot reconcile herself to the fact that she has lost her motherhood. She thinks that her husband is indifferent to their child's death. That is why she develops a sense of hatred against him and prefers living a life of seclusion. Now, my dear students, we can see the multi-layered themes in Frost poetry and how multi-layered themes are working in the poetry of Robert Frost. Always remember that Frost poetry begins with particular and ends in general, begins with natural description and ends in human touch, begins with delight and ends in wisdom. The last line, this is something like the definition of poetry given by Robert Frost. Once upon a time, Frost said that a poem begins with delight and ends in wisdom. Main characteristics or aspects of Frost poetry. These are just in point. First one, regionalism. Regionalism, then pastoralism, then humanism, then modernism, and finally stoicism. Works of Frost. The first volume of poetry is titled A Boy's Will, which was published in 1913. Then North of Boston, published in 1914. Then Mountain Interval, published in 1916. One thing you should remember that our today's poem, Home Burial, is taken from North of Boston, the second volume of his poetry, North of Boston, which was published in 1914. We should remember it. Then New Hampshire in 1923, West Running Brook in 1928, A Further Rains in 1936, A Witness Tree in 1942, then Two Masks 1945, and finally in The Clearing, published in 1962. My dear students, now there are some brief questions, very easy questions for you. Who is Robert Frost? Then mention at least 4 aspects of Frost poetry. 4 aspects of Frost poetry. Just now we have discussed it. 4 aspects, we can say regionalism, pastoralism, humanism, and modernism. And Robert Frost. Who is Robert Frost? Robert Frost is one of the greatest of the American poets who was born in 1874 and died in 1963. And finally, can you now define dramatic lyric? We mentioned that dramatic lyric, Home Burial is a fine dramatic lyric, and the definition of dramatic lyric is a dramatic lyric is a poem which presents some continuous scenes like a traditional drama, and employs primarily dialogue rather than narrative and descriptions. So the main component of a dramatic lyric is it will be like a continuous scenes of a traditional drama, and there will be some kind of dialogue or conversation between two persons in a dramatic lyric. Now I can give you a homework. So my dear students, please try to prepare an assignment on the poem Home Burial as a tragic dramatic lyric. Home Burial is also a tragic poem. This is a dramatic lyric, and this dramatic lyric is presented in a tragic atmosphere or in a tragic mode. You can submit it on my email mullatobarak@gmail.com on or before 17 August 2020. My dear students, thank you very much for joining with me, and I hope I will come back very soon with another class for another session. Thank you very much.